Hello everybody, JGamerB here. This video is going to be a message about the Halloween game that you should really know. If any of you are really skeptical or hesitant or think that iPhonic is a bad company for what happened to their other games and such, I'm going to briefly explain about everything that happened to their games over the years of development and what went wrong. I did a lot of research about each of every game, and I got all of the stories. Since people don't do research about Iphonics games, I'm going to go over exactly what happened to every single game and why I have at least some good hopes about the Halloween game. So, for any of you that are skeptical and hesitant about Halloween, let me go over all of Iphonics games of their track record so you'll have a better understanding. Now, let's start off Friday the 13th. That game was a very huge success for iPhonic and Gun. iPhonic was a developer and co-publisher, while Gun was main publisher. It had thousands upon thousands of players for years after its launch. They add Part 4 Jason with Jarvis House and Roy Burns with Pinehurst. They even planned to add Uber Jason as the virtual cabinet showed the space map. In 2018, around September, the lawsuit was filed against the whole franchise, preventing any new content to drop. Because of this, iPhonic left to go create their other project, Predator Hunting Grounds, due to their content being fully completed early on. Now, despite iPhonic leaving the game, they didn't want to leave it hanging with Gun. So they made a deal with Black Tower to help support Gun with updates and balance changes for Friday the 13th, which came to be true because of the Jason Rage buff. Now, unfortunately, around 2021, the lawsuit was over and Gun and Black Tower fully lost the Friday the 13th rights, leaving the game in a state that would soon get worse over the years. Regardless, though, players still do enjoy the game, having at least 800 players over the years. And in 2024, when the game was no longer on sale, and soon in 2025 that they would lose the servers, between those 2 years, there was at least 400 to 500 players. And eventually, after the lawsuit fully calmed down, Black Tower made a return to update the game a little bit before the servers got hacked and shut down. To this day, it's still playable if you already own the game, and if you went through that Discord PSN account to play it. So that's Friday the 13th there. Predator Hunting Grounds. Now that game was developed by iPhonic and published by Sony themselves. The game itself was a kickoff, having over 6 million players. They also released a bunch of new Predator classes, skins, customization, and even some maps, though I do believe they should add more maps though. I think that's their first mistake. To this day, the game is still being supported, but it's really slow and small because of the Halloween game they're working on. And it has over 600 players to this day and over 30 new Predator classes. Next one, Ghostbusters Spirit Unleashed. That game had over 659 players after its release, along with 7 DLCs that came with 5 new maps. It was developed and published by iPhonic themselves, just like the Halloween game. And it's also the first ever game where you have to interact the AI people to help save them from ghosts. Over the years of content of the game, around August 2023, that's when iPhonic moved on to create the most infamous game that caused a lot of you people, or a lot of people in general, to hate iPhonic and called them a shit company. And that is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Whew, here we go. Developed by Tricia, I don't even think I said that right, and published by iPhonic themselves, this game has peaked in over 4,000 players after its release. Unfortunately, unlike their other games, this one didn't get that much updates to begin with. And this made people believe that iPhonic had abandoned the game. But the story behind the game's development was even deeper. At the beginning of the game's project, there was a complete different publisher named Good Chevron Entertainment that stopped supporting due to functioning issues of the gameplay, leaving the developers no funds to continue the project and was going to shut the game down. In August 2023 is where iPhonic stepped in to support the developers as main publisher and code developer. The game was rushed for two reasons though. One, it was getting closer to the release date that the original developers promised it, which was June 4th. And two, mid-development of the game, iPhonic got another IP asymmetrical game for the Halloween. And they tried to finish Killer Klowns quickly so that they can pull every staff to work on Halloween the game, which leaves Killer Klowns' repetitive gameplay and player count soon started to drop. This is one of iPhonic's, I believe that this was iPhonic's biggest mistakes they made, that cost their reputation badly. Now to this day, the game is still in store, but the player count right now is, from what I saw, 15. And that is very bad. Now, however though, developers did confirm that the game will still get ongoing support, so I hopefully, that they will update this game and drop some good content for you Killer Clown players after the Halloween game's release. And now, speaking of Halloween, we got Halloween the game. Officially going to be released in September 8th this year, developed it by iPhonic and published it by iPhonic, and having their partner Gun as code publisher. Now, Gun's title on the game's trailer has already put people on an outrage due to what happened to TCM, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The outrage was so bad on the internet that iPhonic staff had to put a tweet about Gun's involvement with the game, and being as co-publisher is not a huge involvement. They're more like assistant main publisher that's just doing marketing. Also, John Carpenter and Mechanic Adam, I don't think I said that right, who are the IP holders of the entire Halloween franchise, by the way back in 1978, they have been involved during the beginning of Halloween's game development with iPhonic. Because of this means that there's no potential lawsuits like what happened with Friday the 13th game. And the people that are trying out at demo that PAX East, they came out with many positive reviews, and there were like over 2,000 or 3,000 people that went to that PAX East, and 254 of them was dressed up as Michael Myers. So, I hope this clears everything up about iPhonic's track record and what happened to their games. Now, while some are still playable and supportable, they unfortunately have very low player count, and that made the people to blame the iPhonic about what happened. And while iPhonic themselves should do better with these games, like add more maps to Predator, and hopefully they fix Killer Klowns soon enough, they have been full focused on Halloween around 2024 that they didn't have time to update their other games. And by the way, iPhonic Studios, they only have 127 employees, which isn't, I mean, it's not small, but it's also not big either. So, if you have listened to this all the way of this video, thank you for taking your time. And if you are skeptical or hesitant about the Halloween game, that's okay. That's okay if you are. But I do hope that iPhonic will update their older games faster and bigger once Halloween the game's out. So like Killer Klowns from Outer Space and Ghostbusters Spirit Unleashed are good examples. That and Predator Hunting Grounds. So, that's all I'm going to say. And I hope that this made people view the company different. And I mean, if you're still going to be a typical someone who talks a lot of crap and say the game has failed, even though it literally has not released yet, then I don't know what to say for you. And by the way, they are releasing single player game, so it's not just multiplayer. You get to play as Michael in single player, so similar to offline bots, and it has its own story mode. So at least have some hope that this game will succeed. And John Carpenter, the big license holders are involved, so they've been involved at the beginning of the project. There will be no way that they would screw this up purposely. At least Gun. I trust iPhonic more than Gun because of what I just said of their games. But I think their biggest mistake was just Killer Klowns. So, hope this clears everything up. And I'll see you guys later.